Can we talk about how young and dapper we look in our intro and how we've aged since then?
I don't know what you're talking about. I just took that picture last week, you know?
It's so good. The power of a spray tan, man. I tell you what, we look good in that intro. Episode, what are we on now? Episode,
This is recording episode 4.
I cannot believe it. I feel like I'm getting, I mean, I don't know that I've had the experience yet where I like walk into a public place and people are stopping me. Like, are you that girl from the Untold podcast? But I know it's coming soon.
Yeah, we've been getting great feedback on it, and our guests have really enjoyed it. And so, we're having fun. And, today's guest, gosh, I can't wait to get started because we get to talk about some sports, but I don't want to get there yet.
Not yet, but I will say, there are episodes that you dream about. And I think that we've had some really impressive guests to your point. But today is like my unicorn guest. It's going to be so good. I just can't wait till we get there. One of the things I love to listen to the podcast as you release them. I feel like I'm even learning things because I can't even remember what I had for breakfast today. So shocker that I don't always remember the content that we're recording. But one of the things that I wanted to bring back is just we're a few months into the year now. Let's talk about how we're doing with those New Year resolutions. I've been keeping up with one of mine. How are you doing?
Not so great, but I am determined today to get back on that treadmill. So after I record this, I will hold myself accountable to get up there and do a run.
Okay. We need photos to make sure that happened. And I will be your accountability partner and we'll make sure. One of mine, we didn't get a chance to talk about this because I didn't really know, honestly, if I was going to do it. But every single day since January 1st, this like blends with my shirt today. I've had a gallon of water. Have you ever challenged yourself to do this to increase your water intake?
I mean, that's as big as you are. I mean, how do you carry that? You need a backpack for that.
I curl it actually whenever I need to work out. It's a good addition.
That's one thing that I've been good about is I do drink a lot of water throughout the day. So I actually gave up sodas. Gosh, it's probably been 10 years ago now.
Soda? Did you just say soda? Where
soda.
Are you from the north? Like it's called a Coke. No, it's like I gave up Coke, and then somebody says, "What kind of Coke?" And you say, "Dr. Pepper."
So I gave up Diet Coke. I used to pound Diet Cokes all throughout the day, and then just one day I was like, I'm gonna give this up, and I quit cold turkey, and that was, gosh, it's at least been 10 years, I think now. So now if I like took a sip of it, it would just be too sweet, but I'm good about drinking water throughout the day. So
it's funny how your body
is first, like I'll have 3 or 4 cups of coffee and then it's hydrate through the rest of the day.
That's crazy. They say for every cup of black coffee, you have to double your water intake. So you might need like 17 of these gallon jugs here. You can just be curling all day, curling and chugging. Bring you back to college. Hey, I've got another question for you. So we've talked about this, but we're about to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. And I noticed that you guys recently, and I'm not calling out the UT in you, but for all the Texas grads listening, you continue to go to Oklahoma on purpose.
I know.
Talk to me about that.
God, yeah, there was a time when we were visiting Zach in Arkansas, if there was a route that would have taken me around Oklahoma to get there, I would have taken it. But we kept traveling up there and we kept hearing about this little town called Carlton Landing, starting to become a real destination from a lot of people in Frisco. It's kind of the next Broken Bow, so to speak, and differentiates from Broken Bow in that it's, kind of more of an urban community on Lake Eufaula, and there's kind of more community things to do. And so when you go out there, you meet new people, and it's 3 hours from here and 2 hours from Zach in Arkansas, and Dana, she's always kind of wanted a lake house. And part of it is, we're just so busy, like everybody, right? The first thing that just falls off our radar is planning trips, and so it's one of those things that if you had it, kind of force you to go. And so, the Lyles on our team, they bought a house out there. They're doing great with VRBOing it. And I want to kind of learn that business too. And so we've spent some time out there, and Dana was successful in talking me into actually building a house out there.
Wow. That's a big announcement. That's so exciting.
Yeah, so we finished up our plans, and we'll rent it out and we'll allow clients to use it, and we look forward to gifting it to you and your family to take some friends or family up there with you and enjoy it.
That's so cool. So what is the ETA on that build? Or is it kind of like the rest of the world right now where it's like, man, you cross your fingers and hope for the best on supplies and craftsmanship and work and labor and all that?
Yeah, they tell us 9 months just because of that, with the hope that maybe it could be done within 6 months.
Hmm.
So it should be
2 years. Got it. It'll be ready in 2 years. Got it. I'll put that in for anniversary 12. That's so great. I mean, and one of the questions I really wanted to ask was, I've seen you going there so often. Talk to me a little bit more about how it's different than Broken Bow. I know for my family, when we go to Broken Bow, we maybe could hike. There is some lake time, a couple of local restaurants and like a winery, but it sounds like this would be more for people like me that want the finer things in life.
Yeah, I mean, Broken Bow's great, and we've been there many times as well, and it's a great getaway,
Mhm.
and experience nature and so forth. So this development, basically what they did is they bought the plans from Seaside 30A, and basically said, we're going to kind of copy that concept and put it on Lake Eufaula. And
Wow.
so, they're really low maintenance homes, they're pretty dense, they're super cute little town. And then they have a lot of community amenities like a boat club and a marina, and they've got a church on site. They've got restaurants, and then everywhere you go, there's open space, and every little pocket park has something different to do, like outdoor ping pong or bocce ball, or they've got pickleball, which Dana and I are starting to pick that up, and there's lots of state parks nearby, so you kind of get the best of both worlds, and so it's really fun, and it's interesting. I think we know probably, gosh, 7 or 8 families just from Frisco that have bought out there in the last year. So word's getting out.
Yeah.
It'll be like Frisco's retreat. You kind of everyone caravans out there on the weekends, and we can gather in a new spot.
That's so funny. I feel like it's kind of like Gun Barrel City or like Cedar Creek Lake was like a decade ago. It's like you can't really vacation there anymore because you run into everybody from Frisco. So it's interesting. We're just going north, right? Like all the good things, everything's just moving north. That's hilarious. I love it. True Oklahoma boy right there. You heard it here first.
No, I'm going to get a hard time for that one. But I did want to, again, kind of congratulate you on just another job well done on hosting the Chamber Awards. Our favorite MC here in Frisco, of course, is Joe Trahan. And because it got moved and Super Bowl commitments, we had to have an emergency stand-in. You and Crystal did a great job filling in for the great Joe. And and congratulations on your award for National Breast Cancer Foundation. And of course, Cheney Group won as well. So it was a fun night for all of us.
It was a fun night. And to say that I had big shoes to fill would just be the understatement of the century. But I'll tell you, the great thing about Joe is he just has a personality that's larger than life. And so we knew that we were going to have to make it, memorable. We were going to have to really let our personality shine through, but also that we did have a commitment to him to keep it just professional and effective and fun. I mean, Joe just makes every room that he walks into, it's just full of life. And so it was so, so much fun to have the opportunity to be up there. He was missed. And I tell you, a small dream of mine, although it was great to be able to do it with Crystal, would be to co-MC with Joe one day. So I'm going to try to get that one under wraps soon.
Oh, you heard it here first. So, well, speaking of entering a room, why don't you introduce our guest?
Oh my gosh, is he here?
He's here.
All right, let's bring in Joe. What's up, Joe Trahan?
Hey, you guys, how you doing?
We're doing great.
By the way, Ashley, I got you covered. There's a little check in the mail for those comments. I appreciate you. It's on the way. Nothing but love.
20%. I'm here for it.
I love
Joe,
it.
you were so missed at the gala, but I really hope that you've had an opportunity to know that we took the reins with grace. We did our Joe Trahan selfie. I want to make sure you get a copy in the mail to frame. You were there in spirit, but I do want you to know that you were gravely missed, my friend.
Well, listen, I mean, I know already because I got about 25 texts that night, In fact, I've got one friend who hasn't been able to make the gala for several different reasons for like the last 7 years. And he was like, I finally make it and you're not there. What's going on here? You ducking me. So anyway, I heard it went off great. And you guys know I love that night and I love being around all the people who help make our community great. So I obviously missed it. But, as I said in that little video, when they got Joe Trahan Sports Special on the name of the show, it was a hard one to duck out of. So but I heard you guys did a fantastic job.
Well, Joe, you mentioned our community. I think most of our listeners are not going to realize that you're actually a Frisco resident and kind of live and breathe Sports City, USA. And we know that sports obviously has been a huge part of your life, even from a young age, kind of growing up and playing sports and how it shaped your life. Why don't you kind of tell us about those early days of Joe?
Yeah, well, the early days of Joe, that's all about my family, you guys. I grew up in Houston, and I went to a very small Catholic school. It was K-8. It was St. Philip Neri there in Houston. And mom was the president of the PTA. Dad was the baseball coach. And, I grew up around this willingness to be of service to the community first. And then it was this, village makes the young men and women, right? Because you couldn't do anything wrong, by the way, because mom and dad would find out in a heartbeat, right? And then you wouldn't only have to answer to them, you'd have to answer to the basketball coach, you'd have to answer to the nuns. Joe, I heard you did this. What on earth were you thinking? And once you hear that enough a few times, you kind of start going down the straight and narrow. It's not a hard path to follow. So that was the early upbringing. I played sports back then. I was as I call it, the big three sort, playing football and basketball and baseball growing up. And that was how I started to fall in love with sports. And then, the whole sports broadcasting thing, it actually ended up being secondary because I went to college to study pre-med, and then I came up against inorganic quantitative analysis, and that was it for that. I was like, all right, yeah, I got to learn chemistry too. Nah, that was it. So, and the whole thing in terms of falling in love with wanting to do what I do, it goes back to watching games with my dad way back in the day and having those conversations while we were watching the Astros play, while I was watching Cheo Cruz, the great Jose Cruz. And I think I told you guys, I think I've shared this with you before, Jeff. I learned math by watching those games with my dad because he was smart enough to make it an academic exercise as well. He was like, listen, I want you to figure out what their batting average is before I see it with the graphic, right? So I had to learn, percentages and all the other kind of stuff. So it all ties in together, though, back to those days at St. Philip when you learned to be a community servant. Sports was kind of this background. Academics always came first, and community wasn't far behind.
Yeah, I think we need to petition Frisco ISD since we are Sports City USA. That's how we should teach math, is through batting averages and probability and all those things.
Worked for me.
It's so good. Every student gets an internship with the Rough Riders, right?
That's right, exactly. Yeah, get in there.
Joe,
so growing up in H-Town, Joe, I grew up in H-Town as well. Yes. So, I remember the Astros days and the old Astrodome and kind of lighting up the scoreboard. Of course, the Houston Oilers broke my heart. Still remember Clutch City, USA, all those things. What's kind of your favorite Houston moment? Are you still an Oiler, or what do you even follow?
Well, that's the thing, right? Earl Campbell, as you remember, Jeff, changed everything. And I was an Earl Campbell guy.
Love you, blue.
I'm a stocky guy anyway. So when he came in there with those 34-inch thighs, and I was kind of like, all right, I can work with that. He's my kind of guy, right? And still is, by the way. So that was really that changed everything for me because I was an Astros fan growing up, part of the Astros buddies. Which Jeff, I don't know if you were an Astros buddy as well, way back in the day, right? But yeah. Earl changed everything. And that's really, you guys, when I fell in love with the NFL, and it's still my favorite sport to cover. So Earl Campbell, and then of course, the Clutch City days, Akeem Olajuwon. I mean, the incredible heights that he brought the city to. I remember I wasn't fortunate enough to see any of the games because my broadcasting career had already begun. However, it timed out that I was able to go home for both of those championship parades. And it was just an incredible sight. And it was part of the city that we probably had never seen because it was that euphoria that only comes with the championship, and getting a chance to be back there and on the downtown streets. I'll never forget it. Never forget it.
Mm.
Keeping the ball rolling with championship teams in the last decade plus a few months. let's get people into how you became my Cajun brother from another mother, right? I mean, Lord willing, we all come from Louisiana in God's grace and will somehow. There is
Yes.
a big piece of your journey in the New Orleans area. Let's talk about the 504 area code.
Absolutely. No, the 504 and the boot and Louisiana, they're really important to me because although I grew up in Houston, my family is all my dad actually grew up in Opelousas, which is near Lafayette, Louisiana, right? I know you know it well, Ash, but that's where he grew up. My mom's family is from that small town as well. So, I mean, Louisiana has always been in my roots. I was fortunate enough, I would go summers there and spend time there. And it was so completely different from the city in Houston. I mean, there's horses and cattle and all kinds of crazy and fun stuff that I got exposed to. So that was part of it. And I ended up going to Loyola University in New Orleans. And that's kind of where I fell in love with a lot of things Louisiana, including my wife, by the way, who's from New Orleans. But, I was an LSU fan because at Loyola, we didn't have big time Division I sports. So on the weekends, I would go and watch LSU football games, and I became an LSU fan. It didn't take much. In fact, I was there for what they call the earthquake game.
Yeah.
LSU beats Auburn. Tommy Hotson throws the touchdown pass. Tommy became a friend later. And yeah, I mean, that was really when I fell in love with all things LSU back in the day.
Loudest and best stadium in college football, I'll tell you that.
Nothing like Death Valley on a Saturday night. Nothing. And the tailgating, Ashley, are you kidding me? I mean, and you didn't have to, that was a great thing. You didn't necessarily have to know anyone, right? I mean, if you were a student, if you knew a student, I mean, everyone was so welcoming, so accommodating. You talk about great community spirit, man. There was nothing like it. And God, I could just, the smells, the food, God, the gumbo. You guys, all right, I'm getting hungry. I'm gonna stop.
No good. Happy Mardi Gras, by the way.
Yes.
Since we talked to you, you've been to a Super Bowl and keeping it consistent with a little bit of LSU and Joe Burrow. What was your Super Bowl experience like?
So it was a lot of work to get to Sunday. We just had a lot of things going on. There were a lot of great stories. Of course, Matthew Stafford being a Highland Park guy, I got a chance to talk to his mom right before I left town. And then I talked to Matthew about talking to his mom once I got there to LA. We put that story together and that turned out really good. So a lot of work up until Sunday. Game day was fantastic. That stadium, you guys, man, I know the Cowboys call the Star home and Frisco is part of their home base, but it's the only stadium that I think rivals AT&T Stadium, and you guys, it might even be better. That freestanding roof is like nothing I've ever been in. It's incredibly cool. So the game day experience was great. And obviously the game turned out to be, all I wanted was a competitive game. That's all I wanted. And it turned out to be a fantastic game. And actually, I thought Burrow was going to pull it out. I'm like, can he do this? He has done so much on every level. He just keeps going. But that Rams defense proved to be a little bit too much in a fantastic game. But listen, I'm happy for Matthew Stafford because you want to talk about a storybook ending for him in his first year there when that's all they got him for, you guys. That's the only reason they got him. They knew that Jared Goff couldn't get the Rams to that point. And Matthew pulled it off with that game-winning drive. Man, I had a blast. Incredible.
It was a roller coaster of emotions, right? I mean, you gotta hate it for Odell. That was rough to see him go down. Glad he had the beginning of the game he had. Loved it for Big Wit. That's West Monroe High School royalty right there. My family, Big Wit. Walter Payton Man of the Year. Talk about a week for him.
Yes.
And then, I mean, elephant in the room. The halftime to end all freaking halftimes. Like, I'm still sore, stretched before, and I am still sore from that halftime performance. What was that like in person?
Okay, so here's the crazy part about the halftime performance being in the stadium. The sound is not good for rap performances because you get a lot of the music and you can't necessarily hear the vocals. I was afraid that was going to be the case. And it was, but I quickly got it on YouTube and was able to kind of marry the two experiences together, and it turned out to be really cool. Now, I will say this, I was also privy to some of the colorful language that was used that didn't make it on the broadcast. So, but listen, overall, incredible incredible. And you know, the folks there just soaked it up. They ate it up, and I did too, frankly.
Yeah, it was funny. I loved all the memes going around that said things like, if you enjoyed the halftime show, it's time for your colonoscopy.
Yes, exactly. I saw that one too, Jeff. It's time for the colonoscopy. And it's like, if you stayed up late enough to watch that, it's probably time for you to go to bed. And I'm like, okay. All right. So we're old. Great. But no, it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
So good.
Speaking of sports memories, do you have like a favorite all-time sports memory?
I do. I do. And all you Texas fans are going to love this one.
Okay.
Because, you know, I was there at the Rose Bowl.
Right here.
Yep, there it is. There you go. I see it. Right. So I was there when Vince Young scored. Vince Young scores. That was the incredible, indelible call by the great Keith Jackson. Not only was I in the stadium covering the game, I was in that corner of the end zone. So, I mean, that's number one for me because I was there and in person for it. And then the other thing is the backstory about Vince Young. I had been knowing about Vince for years. He's obviously a Houston kid. His high school coach had a family connection with ours. I mentioned that Catholic school that I went to when I was young. Well, Vince Young's high school coach, his family was all a part of that same Catholic church. In fact, his wife was my mom's best friend. So we had heard about Vince, we knew about Vince, and for him to pull it off and make it happen like that, knowing the backstory and everything about him, it was one of those incredible moments for me to be a part of it. And then if you look somewhere on the 30 for 30, I'm running around chasing Matthew McConaughey, one of those 30 for 30s. I got a mic in his face and he's yelling, all right, or something.
I've got dreams doing the same thing, Joe. I can relate to chasing Matthew McConaughey.
Well, that's my favorite sports memory as well, obviously being a long-time Longhorn fan. And, my connection to that game. So, at the time, our two boys were under 3 years old. And Dana and I had, maybe a couple of nickels to rub together.
Right.
And so I got offered tickets to go to the game. Not offered that I could pay for them. So the trip was going to cost probably like $3,000, for hotel tickets and all those things. And I was debating whether or not I was going to go. And then ESPN did that whole series leading up to it. Basically, USC versus 85 Bears. USC wins. USC versus all these great teams. And so I finally got to my decision point. And, I was talking to Dana. I was like, you know what? I've been watching all these ESPN hype videos. It's going to be 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Here we don't have any money and I'm using it selfishly. So I decided not to go to the game. And I will forever regret that decision.
Wow, that would hurt. But I get it, and even during the game, Jeff, it didn't feel like they were going to be able to win it. But man, USC made that awful decision on 4th down, and oh wow, just incredible. Hey, but your UT, you were still part of it, part of the community. You were there in spirit, so it's all good.
So good. I'm reading this book right now that talks about thin spaces. And it's kind of like when like the supernatural and the natural collide and you're in this moment that's just like bigger than you. And it just feels like this, like you can't even fathom that the moment's happening to you. It sounds like those are kind of those sports moments for you guys. One of mine, I'll tell you, and I think very few people in their life have had the opportunity to do this. I actually had the opportunity with my family to step foot onto Wrigley Field. And I feel like Wrigley is one of those places. It doesn't matter who you root for. I'll even say it for the White Sox fans. Like having the opportunity to visit Wrigley, but then really being able to just have those gates open and to step onto that field. There is nothing in this world like it. I grew up where you were either TBS and a Braves fan, and I love those Andre Scalaraga years. Like I love those years. But then WGN, right? I mean, who was not a Cubs fan growing up, especially in Louisiana? We didn't really have a pro team in that way. So what an experience. And I will just never forget it. I cried like a baby. It was a surprise trip for me. But then I just remember sitting down and just taking it all in and thinking about how it's evolved, all the amazing things that had happened there, just having lights in the 80s, like just all these iconic moments of Sheffield Avenue and I will never forget Wrigley Field and that being my thin space. Not a
Well,
UT moment, but an iconic one nonetheless.
Well, the thing about that, right? The ghost of Harry Carey has to be around that place somewhere, right?
Amen.
You know, and when they sing that in the seventh inning, and when they get singing, and I think about Bill Murray,
Yep.
you know, how he created that love affair. I mean, you're right. It's a little different, you know, than a whole lot of stadiums, right? There's that ethereal part of it, and that mixes in with baseball as well. I mean, you know, when you think about Field of Dreams on a professional level, you know, you kind of think about Wrigley, especially before they use the lights. So that is a cool one. Very cool.
Joe, wasn't your dad your baseball coach growing up?
He was, you know, so it was that same, you know, that St. Philip Neri, right? It was kind of a ragtag thing, you know. We didn't have a lot of money. It was a lot of blue collar families, but there was a lot of class, you know, and there was kind of this esprit de corps, and it was like, you're going to play sports, but you're going to do it the right way. And it was my dad and a few of his friends who were also other coaches there at the school, and they made sure that they instilled that in us. Mm-hmm. And I still have it with me, right? And I can remember it, you know, back to those days. I mean, I grew up because he was the baseball coach. I was lining those fields ever since, you know, 5, 6 years old. I learned how to line the field, learn the rules, right? When you talk to the ump, make sure you know what you're talking about. I mean, there were these foundational lessons that were about sports specifically, but they carried over into life. And I didn't know it back then, but that's what he was preparing me for. And it's resonated and still does with me today.
Yeah, I think probably one of my highlights of being a dad is coaching all my kids in basketball. You know, I used to, believe it or not, be a little bit of a hooper back in the day. And yeah, you know, can still make a jump shot every once in a while.
Look out.
But you know, I coached at the field house. Gosh, I lived there for over a decade. I think I still hold the coaching record for number of championships.
Nice.
But I call myself the Mac Brown of field house basketball, which is, I knew was more about the Jimmys and Joes and less about the X's and O's.
Oh,
and I was a great recruiter of talent.
Right.
So they made me look really, really good.
Hey, that's really important, though. And I will say this, Jeff and Ashley, that's the one thing about my career that I don't regret it, but I wish it could be different. I haven't been able to coach. I haven't been able to coach the kids. And it's certainly something that I thought about, you know, when I was younger. Now, I've got 2 girls. I'm sure we'll talk more about this. I've got 2 girls. They both go to Frisco Lone Star, 18 and soon to be 16. And they're not big into sports. One's kind of big into sports broadcasting, the youngest, but the oldest is she does choir and sings and everything. I tried to get them interested in sports, but, you know, golf camp for a couple of years and soccer, volleyball for a year or 2, but that was about it. But I miss the fact that I didn't get a chance to coach more. I think I would have loved it.
I've got 2 that are just waiting. I'm recruiting both of you. So just you wait.
There you go.
It'll be good. I do want to know more, though. We mentioned your wife earlier. You got a house full of strong females. Let's talk more about your family, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife, Amy, and I have been married going on 21 years now. And she's in the Frisco community as well. She's a teacher at Mooneyham Elementary School. She teaches kindergarten. So, and
bless her.
Absolutely. She teaches the babies and does a great job with those young kids. And she's the rock, you guys. It's not easy. The scheduling aspect of doing what I do is absolutely ridiculous. And Amy keeps it all together. And she keeps the house running and she keeps the girls together. And I don't know exactly how she does it, other than she's a rock star and it's amazing. And she keeps us all together and keeps us all working and, you know, going in the right direction. So, you know, and then I mentioned the girls. You're right, Ash. They're strong women. They take after their mom, and I love it. Right? I absolutely love it. I got 3 strong women. We have great conversations. It's never a dull moment. There's always something, you know, going on that's fun and that we get to work through and talk through. And you know, they enjoy Frisco too, right? They enjoy the environment that we're in and the way that it's set up. And it's been great to see them flourish in it.
2 female dogs too, right? Don't forget you're completely outnumbered in that house.
Yeah, so Callie and Olive. So for a long time, I was like, listen, you guys, in the TV business, you have to make sure that your house is flippable. And by that, I mean, Jeff, you know, at any time, because of my crazy business, what if I get some great job offer and we got to go? The house always has to be flippable. We got to be able to make it ready to put, on display and to show and be ready to go. So we can't get dogs. We can't. Dogs just, they make that really difficult. Yeah. Well, we changed that idea. It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago when I realized, you know what, I'm not going anywhere. We love this place and we're staying in Frisco. So we end up getting 2 little Yorkie mixes, 1 for each of the girls. So that's Callie and Olive. So yes, I have 5 very strong female presences in our house. I am absolutely outnumbered. And yeah, the man cave does become a refuge that is needed at different times.
So Joe, I saw you instantly went into TV voice there. I don't know if your household is like mine, but my daughter Caitlin, she calls it the mayor voice, like when I'm on a phone call or doing an interview, and she just rolls her eyes at me and she's like, "Dad, it's so annoying when you do mayor voice."
Yeah, I get that a lot. I do. And, I've been doing it so long, you guys, that there isn't that big difference between the two anymore. But, the untold part, if we want to get into what this podcast is about, the untold part about yours truly is, while, I try to be Mr. Buttoned Up, make sure we got everything right on TV, when I'm with my girls and when I'm with my family, I try to be a goof, right? I want them to laugh. I want to bring that fun part out, and my best and easiest avenue to that is to just be a goof. I like to clown on myself. I like to sing off key. Really bad freestyle rapping so that they'll just laugh at me, right? When they were really young, they actually thought I was good, but now they just laugh. So I mean, that's the untold part for me. When I'm around them, it's just, I am able to, just be as vulnerable as possible. And it's fun. It's a blast. And I think they've come to appreciate it. I think they're on to me now. They know that I'm being a goof on before I used to be able to get away with it and they'd be like, "Oh, Dad, you're so silly." Now they know it might be kind of for effect. So, but yeah, I do get the TV voice thing too, Jeff.
Well, we won't ask you to bust a rhyme here on the podcast.
No. I won't go down that avenue. I don't want people turning the podcast off. So I wouldn't do that.
It sounds like your goof you is my best me. Like singing off key and bad like freestyle rapping is like me on my best day. So
no, I love it. That's the other thing. I do love music a lot, a ton. I've actually, we're talking 30 years ago. Incorporating music into sports stories was really just beginning, you guys. And I had an affinity for it back then. And, if you've been paying really, really, really close attention to Joe Trahan Sports Special, you would have seen that since football season began, there are beds of music under the highlights that we show. Oh. And a lot of those beds of music fit absolutely perfectly with the Super Bowl show. So while everyone like ESPN's doing it now, I started doing it back in September when I took over the show. If you're paying really, really close attention.
Oh my gosh, I love it. What's your hype song? Like you're walking out to bat, right? You're queuing up the broadcast. Like what's your hype song?
So it depends on, because I've actually gone through this exercise a few times. I think there's a couple ways to go. I'm a big Earth, Wind, and Fire guy.
Yeah.
So September's the great song that everybody knows, right? And they love it. But, I like Shining Star. That just kind of fits with the whole star, the star persona, the whole cowboy star, the whole 9 yards. So, Shining Star wouldn't be bad. It would be an old school, instead of going the hip hop route, I'd go old school. If I went the hip hop route, I don't know. I don't know. There's too many ways to go there. It'd probably be something from Drake. It'd probably be something from Drizzy, as the kids would say.
Nothing wrong with that. Jeff just had a hip hop themed birthday party. Jeff, what's your hype song? If you could only pick one.
Well, you know what it is. You remember our big kickoff when I was running for mayor.
Yep.
When you introduced me, we played Eminem "Lose Yourself."
Nice.
That was my walkout song, and it was just subtle enough where you only knew if you knew. And so
Yeah.
afterwards, most people didn't even notice it or pick up on it because it was just that intro kind of beat that gets started. But the people that knew, they were like, okay, that was cool.
Nice.
Ready to be
Nice.
voice of God and bleep out the parts that I needed to, but I didn't do that 8 Mile moment. It was fine. So good. I actually at my wedding forced all the Cajun things I could, shocker, on a Dallas wedding, right? But we
Yes.
walked up the aisle to halftime by the Ying Yang Twins, which I know surprises nobody.
Oh my God, that's so good.
My husband's 80-year-old grandmother who was not ready for that song. But anyway, I can bring the Saints into, any important life moments. I'm going to do it. So
That is fantastic, Ashley. That is
so
awesome.
good.
So Joe, how did your journey bring you to Frisco?
So, so here's what happened, and it's kind of interesting. We lived in Plano before we moved to Frisco, and we were looking to go a little bit further north. I was looking to get a little bit further out. I've been able to leverage the fact that I don't drive during like peak traffic hours. I either go to work at 11 or 1 ish, and as you know, I don't come home until, before I did both shows, the 6 and the 10, I'd come home at 7 or 8 o'clock, or now I come home at 11, right? So I said, let's get a little bit further out. I knew some people in the home building business, and some of these people actually knew people with the Cowboys, right? So I said, I'm looking at this Frisco place. It's kind of far out because we're all the way at Panther Creek and the Tollway. It's right.
Yeah.
We're almost, as I like to call it, Northwest Frisco. So we're all the way up here, and I said it's kind of far out. I think it might be too far out. But this person I talked to said, no, you're right where you need to be. Now we'll say it. This was before the Cowboys deal to put the star together happened. But he just knew how all of the growth was coming this way. He had no idea that the PGA of America was going to end up, 2 minutes from my front door, or the Cowboys. But he had a sense that the growth was coming this way, and it's only been the best decision in my life.
Well, no, you're a big golfer. In fact, I wore my Ryder Cup vest here just for you.
I see that. I do.
So quite a good move to move at the front door of the PGA. I know golf is a big part of your life, and you're involved with it. And you're not a bad golfer, from what I understand.
I'm okay. I will say this. I'm a single-digit handicap. But right now, if you ask me to play to that level, it would be nearly impossible. I've been kind of busy with work for the last 9-10 months. At some point, we'll get back to the golf course, though. But no, I mean, golf's become a big part of my life. It became a getaway from a crazy breakneck speed business, and a great getaway for me. And I've used it as such for the past 30 years. And coming here, the golf in our area is so fantastic. That love affair really bloomed. I've also been able to work with some great organizations. The First Tee program, they do a fantastic job. And then here in the last 4 or 5 years, I've become really involved with the Northern Texas PGA, that section of the PGA. And you want to talk about one of the best PGA sections in the country with the work they do, especially for junior golfers and kids. But what I really like in terms of what the Northern Texas PGA does is the fact that they put money back into our community in terms of scholarships. And they provide scholarships for DISD students. They're creating this network between some of these DISD students, especially in the southern sector, in underserved communities, and making sure that they are with mentors, and they're working with Deloitte and Touche. They put these programs together, and I have gotten a chance to meet some of the young people who have gone through the program. And you want to talk about rock stars when they come out with the background, learning the fundamentals and the ideals that go with the game of golf. Overlay that with the education that they've been able to get and the mentorship programs from working with some people with Deloitte and Touche and with the Northern Texas PGA. I mean, these kids are fantastic. They're wonderful, and they're going to be our leaders moving forward. And so that's incredibly important to me. And once I kind of got involved in that group, because I knew a lot of people in the golf business, I was the one, in terms of broadcast, who broke the story about the PGA of America moving here. You'll find this funny, especially you, Jeff. There's someone in Frisco's PR department who thought that I got the press release before it came out. They're like, who gave Joe the press release? I know he had to have it because he had everything that was on the press release.
We were trying to find out who the leak was.
There was no, I assure you, there was no leak. It was just that once I started putting the dots together, I knew everyone involved. And while no one would come right out and say it, I literally had one person on the phone just start laughing. And they said, how on earth did you get all this information? I said, first of all, I've been working on this for 3 months. And second of all, it was just this, it was this coalescence of everyone that I knew kind of in the golf industry and everyone who was here in Frisco. And I was like, this is all solid information. And, you know, and we went with it as soon as it was feasible. And Jeff, you'll know what I'm talking about. We went with it then and to see it come to fruition and I get to, you know, on Sunday mornings, I'll go and walk the property now, and just to see from just those seedlings of information that I had, and now that I'm watching it become reality, you want to talk about, you know, that thin layer that blows your mind, Ashley. I mean, wow, to be here and be a part of this and watch it happen, it's been incredible.
Yeah, people still have no idea just how big of a project this is going to be, and it's really going to become the modern home of golf. And the next Jordan Spieths of the world are going to be coming right out of Frisco, Texas. But I do have to ask. So we have heard reports that they keep finding golf balls out on the course. Joe, you have some explaining to do.
I do not, because here's the deal: I respect the game too much. I do. Now, that's not to say I haven't thought about it. I mean, I really want to bring my wedge with me, but I know if I bring my wedge with me, that would probably be a bad thing. Now, I will say this, through my Northern Texas PGA friends, before any of the construction started, I was able to hit a few ceremonial golf shots, if you will, on spots that ended up being holes. That was way back. That was before any of the construction started, though.
Well, I have a big surprise for you here to break it. So we got word last week that they're going to open the course for 1 week in May for key partners to get to play the course, and it's going to be a nice little ceremony. And so they have a city day where they've asked us to invite people, key partners here with the city of Frisco, to get an opportunity for the first round at the PGA. And I assume your schedule will allow to be one of our guests. So
wow!
I officially invite you to be one of the first to play it.
That is, wow, okay, I got goosebumps. You can't see it on the camera. I can't get close. I got goosebumps. Jeff, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'd love to have you in my foursome, and then maybe I can learn a little bit of golf from you. And who knows, maybe you'll get another hole-in-one. I think you've got a handful of those on your resume.
I've got a few. I've been lucky. I got 4. There's a lot of luck involved with those, I'll admit, but I do have 4 on the ledger. Jeff, that's incredible. I'm blown away. Yeah, my schedule. Not only will my schedule allow, my schedule will be funneled into that day. Yeah, for sure.
We got to give him the waterproof mascara alert next time, Jeff.
No, I mean, you talk about, but that's really that's well done, Jeff. That's wow. Yeah, you absolutely blew me away with that one. I would love to be a part of that.
It's so exciting.
Well, tell me the story. You know, I want to kind of show off your golf skills. So I know you've hit holes in one before. You know, my wife Dana actually has a hole in one on her resume as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that's, you know, a goal of mine one day. You know, I'll learn from you perhaps. But I know one time you were telling me the story of your luckiest hole in one. I guess they're all lucky, right? But
yeah, well, I was explaining to my daughter the other day, listen, I mean, I'm okay. I'm proficient at the sport, right? I understand the physics and I kind of know what you have to do to get the ball going the right way. But for it to actually end up in that hole, you know, that's, 4 inches in circumference or whatever. I mean, for it to end up in that from, 150 yards away, I mean, there is a big element of luck, right? But the best one I had, and it felt like something out of a movie. I was visiting my buddies, the main anchor at KGO TV in San Francisco, the ABC affiliate there, and he lives in suburban San Francisco, and we're on his, mountainside golf course. And I hit a shot, and I was like, oh, I hit that. That one's a little bit too long, right? It was, 156 yards. And I'm like, I felt it off the club. I'm like, that one's past the pin. I hit it too hard. And he says, hold on. So it hits past the pin by probably a good, I'd say 30 feet. But I had enough spin on the ball that when it hit, it starts rolling back towards the hole. And I'm like, is that enough to come all the way back? And he goes, I don't know. Let's see. I mean, we're having a conversation while all this is going on because it's happening so slowly. And then the ball starts coming down the hill. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Tiger Woods, but think about the Tiger Woods shot on the par 3 when he hit the little chip and it rolled back in the hole. And Vern Lundquist says, in your life, have you ever seen anything like it, right? It was kind of that slow motion rolling back down the hill. And when that ball went in, I lost my mind. It was the coolest thing. It felt like it was straight out of the movie. My friend and I were hugging and laughing, and two guys who I didn't particularly know, they end up hugging and laughing and yelling, and it was one of those crazy moments that golfers live for.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm picturing the Phoenix Open that just happened,
Yeah.
throwing beer in the air and stuff.
Well, I tell you what, we hadn't gotten to the beer yet, but if we had some, it would have been all over the place at that point. Yeah, it was the coolest moment, one of the best, one of my most memorable moments on the golf course.
Where's the ball now? Did you save it?
Absolutely. I've got it saved. It's in like a wooden plaque with the little ball holder and all that kind of good stuff. I've got my first one in a plaque like that, and I've got that one as well. Those are the only two. The other ones, you got to act like you've been there, you guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, it's incredible whenever it happens. But I do have those two saved specially.
I love hearing about your passion for golf, and a lot of it is your busy work schedule. We were talking a little bit about this before you joined us, but it is and I'm not blowing smoke. I'm here to tell you, Jeff's known for a long time how much I just admire you. And, I was a broadcast journalism girl. I'm a sports girl. I started at the Channel 10 affiliate in my hometown in Monroe, Louisiana. And I was doing all the post-game sports reporting myself. And Joe, you and I have talked about this. I would set up the camera. I'd have to shoot myself. I'd pause it. I'd get back to the studio. I'd have 45 minutes to edit it to the best of my ability. And then get it out, for 4, 5, and 6. And I just don't think people know how hard it is. I don't think they think like you're the person from TV. Somebody just, tease that up for you, and then you just get to be pretty, and then you leave. Let's talk about the grind.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hard part about it is I don't think people want to hear it, so it's hard for me to talk about it, but I will share it with you guys. I mean, the amount of hours that go into what we do, people just wouldn't believe. They really would not believe it, especially when you're reporting, like you were talking about, Ashley, going out, getting the story, the time it takes to edit what you actually get and put it into a form that is not just consumable by the public, but is heightened in terms of what we do and how we do it, right? We like to call it Emmy worthy, right? Because it's one of the big awards in our business is winning a Lone Star Emmy, and then there's even, larger awards than that, Edward R. Murrow. These are national awards that you can win, because you don't want it to just be consumable, right? You want to heighten and elevate the way that you present it. And there's just a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into it. I mean, as a reporter, before I got elevated to the job I am now, just in terms of the editing and all that other stuff, I mean, ripping off a 60-hour work week was not the biggest deal. Once you got more than that, it got to be a little crazy. But I mean, 50, 60-hour work weeks are commonplace. If you want to spend that extra time, especially in the editing session, really creating something that people will remember and something that will resonate, and something that is award worthy and something that, you want to keep on your resume, right? The time that goes into it, I am, I'm one of those people, I kind of think about it all the time. I might be, on my way to do something, but I'm always kind of thinking about, all right, what's that next way to do it? How do I differentiate from what everybody else is doing? I just started doing something the other day on air that I hadn't done before, taking pictures of these athletes and using Photoshop to cut them out to where they look like these figures that can stand up next to me on camera, right? I've just used that technique and just started that, a few days ago. So, I mean, it's all these things. And again, I know people don't want to hear about that part of it, but it's hard. And that's the hardest part for me, being a family-oriented person, because I knew that time was taken away from time I could be with my family. And it created this pull and tug, right? Internally within me. How much time do I spend doing that, making that greatness? How much of the time should I spend away from my family? And that was the hardest part for me. But, I try to balance it. It's always a work in progress. But like I said, we go back to my wife, Amy, being the rock star of the family. And that's part of the reason why.
But look, your anthem, you started from the bottom, now you're here. Let's talk about that seat you just talked about. You talk about goosebumps that the camera can't capture. The moment that I found out you got Dale's seat, the moment that I knew you had that seat, you're so worthy. It was so overdue. I'm just so proud of you. Let's talk about the moment you found out you got the big seat.
Woo! That was a moment. I mean, that was because you guys, this isn't, some overnight sensation, right? We see that in the business sometimes. Excuse me. We see that happen in the business sometimes, where somebody will do a story, they'll get really hot, their star will, flame up, and they'll go to these heights. No, you guys. I mean, this was born from work. This is all about work. I worked my way through high school because, my folks couldn't afford to send me to Straight Jesuit in Houston. I worked back then. I worked my way through college. That's what it's all about for me. And, and even in our business, I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years now. I've been a number one guy before. I was the main sports anchor there in New Orleans, actually. But, to do it and be able to do it in this large of a market, one of the best TV stations in the entire country, it's a nod to what our business really is all about at the most foundational part of it. It's about a ton of hard work, and yeah, you gotta put some sizzle to go with the steak, but the hard work is the foundation of it. And I see my elevation as a nod to that, but then more importantly than everything, it's a nod to the way I treat people. And that's TV, that's whatever I do, and that's the way I am, and that's the way I was brought up to be, right? Going back to St. Philip. That's what it's really a nod to, because the thing that I heard from so many people after, I got the promotion was, yeah, you're great at TV and that's fantastic, but I'm happy for the person that you are that received this nod. And that was what meant more to me than anything else. Because when these TV days are done and gone and nobody's watching me on TV and nobody particularly cares, when I'm that old guy who's the ranger at the golf course riding around making sure people are, doing things they should do, I want to remember, yeah, that guy, he's a pretty good guy. He's a good guy. Yeah, and that's what matters.
Those are the days we're going to be watching your daughter do it on TV.
Yeah, you might be right. I'm trying to dissuade her. I'm like, honey, you're too smart for this. You could be a business tycoon. You could do whatever you want. You could be a lawyer. But we'll see.
Watch the podcast.
That's right, exactly. That's right.
So, Joe, as we kind of wrap up here, when you take off, your hat of covering the sports and become a fan of sports, who are the teams that you root for?
Yeah, so we kind of touched upon it when we mentioned the whole thing with the Houston Oilers. When the Oilers left and went to Tennessee, I did not follow them because, as you remember, back in Houston, it was that owner. I won't even say his name because I don't like him. He took away my childhood heroes, so I'm not even going to mention his name. He's a bum to me. No, got nothing to do with it. So he took it away. So I didn't follow the Titans. But with those Louisiana roots, the Louisiana teams were always my second favorite teams, right? And they became my first favorite at that point. So it was the Saints and LSU at that point became my major rooting interest, right? And I'm mostly, I'm a football guy first. So those really have, become my main rooting interest. I always keep the Houston teams, in my back pocket, so to speak. So I kind of keep up with the Texans, not really. The Astros more so, and the Rockets more so.
Yeah.
But I don't even follow them as much anymore, right? The little time I have to spend on being a fan, it's mostly the Saints and LSU football.
What an emotional roller coaster it is, I'll
Oof,
tell you. We
ain't
got
that the truth?
you rebuilding years ahead of us, my friend, but we'll do it
Yes.
together.
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll see if the head coach ends up being a head coach at another football team that's really close to us, huh?
Oh my gosh, I knew that was going to come back to this. He's going to follow you all the way to Dallas, and y'all are going to be so lucky that you have him. I'll tell you that.
There you go.
Ashley texted me when that was rumors was out there. She goes, "If the Cowboys steal my coach, I'm ending the podcast."
We're
You've
done.
been warned. You've been warned. Just saying,
my goodness.
everybody looks good in black and gold. Blue's not everybody's color. So
Well, I just wonder if it's a matter of, having that 1 year buffer
Yeah.
so that, Ashley just doesn't quit the podcast. Maybe that's what's behind this whole thing.
thanks, Sean P. He's really looking out for the Untold podcast. That's so nice of him. Joe, as we wrap up, I just want to say again from the bottom of my heart what it means to both Jeff and I that you took time to do the podcast today. And Jeff knows, fangirl so hard. And again, it goes back to the testament of who you are, but it genuinely sets my soul on fire to see that good things happen to good people, but it's not because the hard work and the dedication wasn't a big part of your journey. So thank you for taking a small portion of that journey out to spend it with us. And we are rooting for you. And we are really just looking forward to all the blessings that are to come for your professional journey, your personal journey. And all I'm saying is I want to drive the golf cart when you play the course, Jeff.
Yeah, that happened.
Well, listen, however that happens, it's good with me. And on a quick serious note, to both of you, thanks for everything that you do for us in the community, right? Because, besides what I do at my job and all that other stuff, the first things first, my family is here in Frisco. It's where we are. It's where our feet are at. It's what's important to us. And it's, the work that you guys do, the work that the city does, and so many people who help our city do the right thing and run well and, help all of our bottom lines. I can't thank you guys enough. And thanks for having me on the podcast as well. It's great. It's a blast. It's really fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. And I'll follow up with more details of that day in May, and maybe we can get some live shots there.
I got to tell you. Now, okay, you might be able to see the goosebumps now. Are you kidding me? Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Y'all take care.
Oh, that was so much fun.
I just we need quarterly Joe podcasts, to be able to talk sports with somebody who's just an icon and who you have idolized for so many years. This might be my favorite one to date.
Maybe we may have to do something kind of live from that day to follow up from our listeners. They're going to be so curious. So
yeah, kind of give them a look behind the curtain, right? A first look behind the curtain of really what it looks like out there. That'd be great.
Community shout outs. One that I'd love to give is to the whole Frakes family. So I hope everyone has enjoyed our intros and outros. That's been done by the creative mind of Brandon Frakes. He was the creative mind that you introduced me to, who ran all of my mayor's campaign. He's just a genius. Mm-hmm. Their family lives here in Frisco, and they own and run Industrial Cigar on the tollway. And we just love them so much and appreciate them, so much. And if you need graphics work, they are the best best I've ever worked with. And they're just good people. And their Industrial Cigar, it is taking off. It's starting to get international recognition. I know they're looking to grow it and build their own building. So just super proud of the Frakes family.
Love, love, love the Frakes family. Shout out to Brandon. A quick one from me before we go. I want to make sure that I take an opportunity to shout out Suad Bejtovic. So several people watching today are very familiar with Suad and like me, consider him family. You've probably had your social media newsfeed blowing up lately because of all of his art shows and the recognition he's been getting for his beautiful talent behind the camera. But the thing I love the most about Suad is he's not the type of person that like expects people to come to his shows before he gives for you, right? He just kind of gives without expectation. He has always been the biggest fan of me, kind of wherever I was on my professional journey. I know he loves my family like none other. He and his beautiful wife, Jennifer, I just can't say enough good things about them, and highly encourage people, if you need a headshot, see Suad. If you want to get more involved with the Visual Arts Guild of Frisco, he's doing amazing things there. And make sure you get out, like my family and myself plan to see his art on display. Suad, we love you. Jennifer, we love you. Keep doing good things for Frisco, and thanks for being a part of our family.
Best dressed photographer in Frisco, as he says, and we've used him for both roles. He's done photography for us, and the suit that I'm wearing in my picture in the intro is a Suad suit.
There you go. Dressed by Suad, like all the finest men around town. I love it.
All right. Well, thanks, Ashley. And thanks, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you on the next Untold podcast.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.